From TeachIllinois.com, this is The Teacher's Classroom, the podcast that explores current issues and topics in education and how they relate to teaching and students. Here is your host, Matt Weld.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Teacher's Classroom podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Future Ready with Mindy Fiscus. Mindy is the Digital Access Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. She has earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Illinois in Springfield, and she brings 19 years of educational technology experience to this position. She also serves as the Illinois State E-Rate Coordinator and Illinois representative to the State Education Technology Directors Association. As one of the state leads for Future Ready, she is consistently impressed by the transformational change happening in Illinois districts who have embraced the Future Ready framework and the mindset. And those are a couple of things we're going to be talking with Mindy about today. So welcome, Mindy, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to come talk about Future Ready. I am very passionate about the program and happy to share what I can.
Perfect. And I know that you have a ton of experience when it comes to this kind of thing, as I just read some of it. So you bring a lot of experience. You travel all over the state, right? Doing E-rate stuff and...
Yes, I'm otherwise known as the E-Rate Queen, as you know. I do also enjoy working with schools and helping them through the E-Rate process. So I see a lot of things going on in the state, and Future Ready is one of the things that has really taken the state by storm in the last few months. So I'm happy to share it, and also happy to share any insights on E-Rate whenever anyone needs them.
Okay. Well, we'll get to some contact information and all that kind of stuff later on. But for right now, let's dive into this Future Ready stuff. But let's zoom way out, like we're in Google Earth, and you zoom out and you see the whole Earth. So let's zoom way out and look at Future Ready and like what its initial intentions were. Like, why was this even developed?
Great question. So Future Ready really came about as a grassroots effort from school districts who are wanting to embrace digital and personalized learning. What they found is that they really knew where they wanted to get to, but didn't quite know how to get there. So they were talking about really transforming teaching and learning practices and embracing this new philosophy of supporting teachers and students exactly where they are. There's a understanding that if we support everyone where they are, then everyone can grow together in a district. And so the U.S. Department of Education heard this outcry for some resources to help kind of put some order to this process. And they stepped right in and started providing these tools and resources online. So some of them are planning tools that allow districts to take a look at where they are and then provide some strategies and activities of where they want to be. Others are survey tools that school districts can take advantage of to kind of do a self-reflection of sorts. And then lastly, there are all kinds of available resources that school districts can take a look at and choose which ones to take advantage of to meet their needs of their staff and students. In this way, it really provides a nice framework for driving that transformational change. One of the questions I also get a lot in talking about what Future Ready is this misconception that it is a digitally focused curriculum, which is not the case at all. It is a bunch of tools to support those who want to embrace digital learning, but more importantly, personalized learning. And so that doesn't always have to be digital. So it's a distinction I like to point out.
Yeah, especially since those of us who have backgrounds in ed tech seems to be the ones that were pushing it a lot.
Yeah, and I think that there are a lot of associations that support the program, and many of the messages that we're first hearing about Future Ready are coming from technical associations and technical groups. But it's really important to address that and know that this is really about changing of classroom atmosphere and practice, and not necessarily embracing just digital tools, but new tools in general.
Do you think that's because ed tech people tend to be first adopters?
Well, of course we are, cutting edge. I think that tech environment has really seen the biggest difference, and the change in the environment has put some unique demands on the technical people of a district, especially those who are now charged with coaching in the technical aspect in the classroom, and really trying to do new things that we haven't done before in the use of technology in education.
Yeah. So you talked about planning tools, survey tools, resources. That's a lot of content to come up with. Who funded all this? And
another great question. So originally it started, like I said, at the U.S. Department of Education, and several different associations kind of came to the table and were asked for resources that they could provide for these schools. And so they started to kind of create a clearinghouse, which developed into a whole kind of element of collaborative learning together between the associations. So when it started at the U.S. Department of Ed, they started talking about the motivation for it, working with various partners. Several different people brought things to the table, and it quickly determined that it needed a house outside of the U.S. Department of Ed. So in late 2016, early 2017, I'm not sure of the exact date, the program moved to where it is now at the Nonprofit Alliance for Excellent Education. And they have a wonderful website that you can check out that lists an unbelievable amount of partners, many state, regional, national education associations and organizations, and also corporations. The funding actually comes from 7 funding partners, and they're listed on the website, but they include groups like the Carnegie and Gates Foundations, as well as some content providers and some web service providers like Amazon Web Services and AT&T. So it really is free. That's the next question that I usually get. The only requirement for using the program is actually having your district sign on to the program, signing the district pledge that simply states your district has a vision of supporting students where they are and where they want to be, and then providing an email address for access to the system. So there's no fee charge at all. You do have to log in with a school email address to be associated to your district and access those particular tools.
And a superintendent has to be the one to start it all, right? Like officially.
Right. So a superintendent is the one that signs that original pledge, though I am working with several districts who have changed superintendents, and it's just the transition from one superintendent to another. So currently it moves with you just change the superintendent on file there at the district.
But I've heard several districts where a teacher hears about it first and then takes it to the administration.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because I mentioned it was a grassroots effort, and in almost every case that I have worked with a school district, it has been led by a teacher hearing about the movement and really bringing it to the administration for their opinion. In a couple of cases, it's been really interesting where teaching staff has taken it directly to the school board and said, this is something we think we need. And then the school board and administration took it from there.
Oh, okay. That's getting serious real fast.
Yeah. Community involvement at its finest.
Right. So how many people are involved, both in Illinois, but also state or nationwide?
Well, I have some rough data. The data that we have been collecting is which school districts have actually signed that pledge and said that they are interested in participating and viewing those resources. And right now, my records indicate over 225 districts in Illinois that have taken that pledge. Now, Future Ready reports that they have 30 state programs. Illinois is one of them. So states who have taken the pledge at the state level, and over 42,000 educators that are actively using the resources. One of the things that the Learning Technology Centers have asked for from Future Ready is some more data and some more information on who those school districts are, where they are in the process, and in what ways we might be able to help them through the different various tools that are there. So that's something that we're trying to build a database on and hope to have more information on exactly who's using it in the future. School districts need to know, however, that this is their activity on their own. It's not something that's being shared with the State Board of Education or partners like us unless they give permission to do so. So we can get numbers, but not necessarily who's using what and how, unless the school district signs off on that.
Right. Which I think is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. Data privacy is important.
Yeah. So let's take a break right now. And you mentioned us and the Learning Technology Center. Can you just define yourself?
Sure.
For a minute.
Sure. So, again, my name is Mindy Fiscus, and I'm the Digital Access Coordinator for the Learning Technology Centers. The Learning Technology Center is a program funded by the Illinois State Board of Education to support technology and education statewide. So my role at the LTC is to help school districts achieve access to broadband security, as well as so networks and connectivity, as well as help school districts find funding and resource channels that are digital in nature. We also have some other statewide partners at the LTC. We have Brian Bates, who is our digital learning coordinator and focuses on professional development and networking opportunities for digital coaches in the classroom, and does some of our leadership strand. And then we have another statewide support person, Chris Worley from central part of Illinois, who is our network and technology services coordinator. And he kind of focuses on I like to say our tech geeks in the state of Illinois, our boxes and wires people, state reporting, infrastructure, and really helping build those conversations and professional development around that. We have some state outreach people and our director, Tim McElvain, as well. So we are currently growing at the LTC, hiring some new staff and really trying to get out there and find out what those district needs are and meet people where they are, kind of with the Future Ready focus. So my role at the LTC is Digital Access Coordinator, and I help school districts find resources for digital tools as well as connectivity and broadband support. I work with the Classroom Connectivity Process and E-Rate. We have other partners in our organization that work in other avenues.
Great. I just wanted to make that clear to people who may have never heard of the LTC before. And to be perfectly transparent, I was part of the LTC for a while. So that's how Mindy and I met in the first place.
We have gone through a reorganization multiple times. I've been with the LTC since 1999, so I've seen it be 7, 14, 7, 2, and 1. So it's quite entertaining to kind of watch how things happen and change in the state. Happy to have Matt as one of our partners in trying to reach schools and districts.
Well, thank you. So back to Future Ready. So it's structured in gears. Right. Can you go over the structure of it and how it works?
So first, let's kind of define a gear. The program uses 7 different gears. You can consider them kind of areas of focus, and they are gears strategically because they all work kind of together. The idea is that the 7 gears support personalized student learning and are surrounded by an ever-changing evaluation and planning process and overwhelming administrative support and leadership.
So this sounds like very evidence-based.
Yes. So one of the things that really came from the field when it was at the U.S. Department of Ed is the overwhelming support from those who come from the field of evidence-based learning. And so really talking about what those individual gears are and how they would all work together took a lot of time and conversation. Again, I said this process isn't really driven by technology, but technology was a big piece on it. I like to give people an example of how the gears all kind of work together. So some of the gears focus on learning practice and PD, where other gears focus on learning space and time, budgets, infrastructure, and things like that. There is a particular gear for data privacy, which really kind of reaches out to our IT folks, as well as gears on leadership and community. So it really is all the different segments and elements that you see working in a average school district. And they are all meant to work together. So the example that I like to give is one where a school district really embraced the gear of learning, individual classroom learning and practice and decided to really embrace that gear and started conversations on that subject. And as they were going through the process to talk about teaching and learning, the teachers, who are highly encouraged to be a part of the process, started reporting there was an outage or instability of access to the network in one part of the school. And the school district superintendent was rather surprised by this revelation that there was some instability in their network, because he, of course, at the administration level thought everything was working just fine and perfectly. And so that caused the learning community and the learning team to reach out to the robust infrastructure team and discuss with them the concerns that they had. The robust infrastructure team then quickly discovered that the problem was easily fixed. And not only was it easily fixed, but determined that the replacement of devices that they were going to do in the next cycle wasn't even necessary. So they really took advantage of the equipment that was there, but just not configured appropriately. And all of this was driven from teachers reporting that they didn't have access to their classroom. All in all, fixing the problem with infrastructure led that gear to the budget gear and situation, which allowed them to reallocate resources to a new learning management system that allowed all teachers and learners to have some professional learning and personalized learning there through the system. So it's basically just everybody really getting to talk to each other from the different segments of the gears and really making and driving some change within the districts.
It's amazing what a conversation can do.
Right. Communication is the biggest, the biggest hurdle
Right.
In a lot of relationships.
So it sounds like the gears represent, like you said before, it's not just ed tech. The gears represent an entire school district. And so it really is a tool for the whole district to grab a hold of, which is probably why those teachers went to the board in that one district.
Yes, yeah.
And said,
and I think in that particular district, there was a change of administration going on anyway. One retiring and a new one coming on, and really the teachers really were heard and wanted to have a say-so in the direction that the school district was going to take under new leadership. So that was kind of an interesting approach in that one. Well,
and the whole format then is to create these teams, right? Everybody takes an assessment, an initial assessment, and then teams are developed with all sectors.
Right. So there is an assessment for each gear. We encourage school districts to tackle one or two at a time and not try to really jump on all seven. That's overwhelming. The schools that are embracing the tools are saying that they've tackled a gear, but it has led them to having an impact and a change in other gears. Even if they're not focusing on that other gear at that time, when they start having conversations around the next gear, they say, oh, and now that would have been a problem in this assessment, but it's fixed because of the impact that we had from our first gear. So I think it's really interesting that they chose gears as their imaging for the tools, because I think it's a really good example of how it all works together in a district and how one thing can impact another.
Well, it's so true. Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like there's a lot of wisdom that went into creating this whole framework. Speaking of that, so I'm curious as to how Future Ready fits into all these other mandates that are out there. We had the, No Child Left Behind, which morphed into ESSA, but then Future Ready was kind of there kind of at the same time or before ESSA was even developed. So I'm assuming there's a relationship between the two.
Yeah, transitions at the federal and state level. Talking about No Child Left Behind, that's when I first heard about this movement, was school districts really looking, as a result of No Child Left Behind, looking for a way to make some impact and to make some positive changes in their districts. And so when the U.S. Department of Ed started reaching out and asking for tools, it was really nice to kind of see the overall focus be on how can we improve. And I think that that's how this kind of came to be. Now that we have ESSA in place, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, for those of you who love our acronyms in this industry, the Every Student Succeeds Act is a motion to really do just that, to reach out to every student and make sure that everybody is moving forward in a positive direction. And that's kind of the philosophy of Future Ready. So one of the partners that I've had a lot of conversation with about this is the Friday Institute in North Carolina. And they have done a lot of research and alignment with the ESSA framework. As a matter of fact, Future Ready tools are one of the tools that are touted and approved for district evaluation tools from the U.S. Department of Ed for districts who will be required to submit an ESSA plan. That's not every district in our state or nation. That is districts that get a certain amount of money or above. They do have the right to choose whatever planning process they'd like to go through, but Future Ready is one of those tools. Our Learning Technology Center has partnered with Future Ready to roll out their leadership in professional and digital learning program for administrators. And it really has a solid foundation of Future Ready and ESSA elements in it. And the people at the Friday Institute are currently working on a crosswalk of those tools to the ESSA philosophy. In addition to that, Brian Bates at the Learning Technology Center and I started a process of crosswalking the Future Ready gears to the Illinois quality framework that school districts are seeing. And so we were really happy to find a lot of correlation between the two and have created a document and submitted that to the Illinois State Board of Education for their comments. So that's something we hope to release to the school districts soon.
All right, Mindy. So this sounds like really great framework for schools who are looking to work on school improvement. And it seems like school improvement was a big thing for a while, and then it dropped off, and now it's there. And I really believe in goal setting, and it seems like the Future Ready framework is good for that. But that's all up at the district level. And this podcast is designed for classroom teachers. So how can Future Ready affect student achievement, and how can the individual classroom teacher benefit from knowing about this?
Well, this is where my data gets a little fuzzy and touchy-feely. The thing that really jumps out at me about Future Ready is listening to the school district staff who've embraced Future Ready and are reporting really dramatic changes in the educational environment. What really strikes me as the most profound is that the tools are opening communication channels between administration, staff, and students. And really saying that teachers and students are reporting that they feel valued and heard and are finally getting the kind of PD opportunities that they want and need. Administration is also working to fix issues that have long been ignored in school districts, and it's really connecting students to have a say in the things that they learn and how they learn them. So the biggest thing is not really a data element, but a philosophy change in learning to really embrace what teachers want to do, what students want to do, and make them feel valued and heard. So in the example that I gave before about the change being made with the infrastructure impacting the learning management system, it was profound in the district. All of those changes happened in 1 week, from the time where the teachers were reporting a shortage in access to technology to the time where that technology was fixed and now they had new learning management system that they didn't have before, was less than a week. The project snowballed, and 60 of the 70 staff members are now actively involved in serving in one of these teams because they're seeing that it makes an impact in their classrooms. Teachers are being given the freedom to rearrange their classrooms and try things that they hadn't tried before. The focus has gone from assessment and evaluation to really taking people where they are, trying new things, and really embracing learning. And that's something that I really am excited to hear is happening.
And so it's affecting school culture.
Yes, that's the biggest profound amount. And I think that, one of the things that we always kind of gloss over in our school improvement process is that culture piece. Mm-hmm. And that part where we're so focused and have been in the last few years in education on assessment and evaluation. It's really time to kind of step back and see that maybe if we fix our culture and our internal communication, that can have a profound effect on learning. And we might even see our student scores increasing from that. I come from a background of having a pre-K teacher as a mother. And so lots of things come back to choice and environment and really creating a safe place for our students. And I'm happy to hear that conversations are starting around that again in our educational environment.
Well, I think you just said it all right there. And so let's leave it right there on a good note about how Future Ready can be a great tool to move the culture, get people talking, and in that way, we can affect the data, the student growth data that we look for so much. So, Mindy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Matt. If your listeners want to hear more about Future Ready, you could just do a Google search for Future Ready, or it's at futureready.org. And we're happy to support it at the Learning Technology Center at ltcillinois.org. Okay.
And so people can find you there, because I know there's like a staff page that shows your pretty little mug.
Yes, I think that you can have access to all of our staff there on the staff page. We've got pictures and biographies and all kinds of things going up. So do check that out. Okay.
Well, like I said, Mindy, you've been great. I think this Future Ready framework is definitely something that districts should take a look at when they're planning for the future.
And I encourage teachers to go on out and check it out and have conversations with other districts who have given it a try. And if you need any support from the LTC or from Matt to encourage your administration to take a look at it, that's what we're all here for, to support educational technology.
Perfect. All right. And thank all of you for listening to the Teacher's Classroom, which is part of the Illinois Area 5 Professional Development and Innovation Initiative. I'm your host, Matt Weld. Please subscribe to the podcast and share today's episode with your colleagues. You can follow Teach Illinois on Twitter at TeachILPD, and I can be found at Matthew Weld. You can find and subscribe to the Teacher's Classroom on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google, pretty much wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time right here on the Teacher's Classroom.